Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what's happening across the US right now, because today I even woke up and my cell phone was out of service. It was on SOS mode. Verizon was down. You have this whole Hurricane Helene aftermath. People have gone through it. Cities were evacuated, and a lot of things are happening. You have the North Carolina, especially Asheville, and the Tennessee floodings. You have this huge explosion going on at the Biolab facility in Georgia. You have, of course, the Verizon and I think other service providers were out today. And so I want to talk a little bit about a lot of this conspiracy, quote unquote, stuff that's happening and being floated across the internet. And so I'm not here to convince you whether you should believe it or not. I'm not saying that. I'm just presenting to you the information and how people have researched this. And as we know, with everything that has happened over the last 5 to 8 to 10 plus years, you never want to dismiss something outright because it kind of challenges your paradigm of reality and it kind of makes like no sense. Like you think it's just too crazy to be true and all that stuff, because quite honestly, a lot of what's happened is fair game. You look at the HARP stuff, all the conspiracy with how they can control the weather, and you look at what happened with Hawaii and all of this stuff. And so let's quickly take a look at this clip of somebody talking about this from a while ago. This is a long time ago, I think. And if they had it back then listen to what's happening right now.
Lasers, really? To change the weather?
That's right. Well, as Mark Twain once famously said, everyone complains about the weather, but no one ever does anything about it. Well, instead of doing a rain dance, we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts.
Go ahead.
Well, this fascinates me in part because, too, I remember reading the stories that China had used this during the Olympics, that the USSR had used this after Chernobyl to create rain clouds. I mean, did those really work then? We have some of these capabilities now?
Inconclusive. Even in the 60s, the CIA used this to bring down monsoons during the Vietnam War, to wash out the Viet Cong. Governments have been playing with this thing.
Alleged to.
Alleged to, right.
Yeah.
Now, we realize that for decades now, these governments have been alleged to have experimented with weather control, but nothing conclusive. This time we're bringing in the laws of physics rather than simply waving our hands and uttering mumbo jumbo. We're actually using trillion-watt lasers now. And in the laboratory, sure enough, they precipitate rain out of water vapor. Sure enough, you can actually bring down electricity down the beam. Firing trillion-watt lasers, you rip apart the electrons, creating what are called ions, and these ions act like seeds, like dust particles, bringing down rain and even lightning.
And if you haven't seen some of the footage coming out right now with the hurricane aftermath, it is worse than people think, because a lot of the area, especially Asheville and some of the hard-hit areas, they are dealing with an aftermath that is unprecedented. And somebody wrote to Pepe Deluxe here, Heidi, who talked about on-the-ground grassroots observations. Pepe, this storm is unprecedented. News for the radio stations that we are getting is mostly coming from harm operators. It's apocalyptic. Sinkholes opening up, power lines, trees down everywhere, roads are impassable in places. You have to find goat trails to get around some cases. Transformers and power lines down on major roads, mudslides, whole towns are gone, holes opening up everywhere. Hospitals are closed, 911 service is spotty. Hot Springs, Marshall, Chimney Rock, all wiped off the face of the earth, not flooded, gone. The Lake Lure Dam burst open, so anyone that didn't evacuate is dead. We just got cell phone service, but communication is spotty. And this is outside the fact that even the Verizon network is down and has been down all day today. Rivers are creating 10 to 15 feet above record flooding levels. Trees are still falling. Emergency crews are overwhelmed just trying to save lives or find people trapped in mudslides. I did not see some military vehicles today and some out-of-town utility workers. I think they're sending people. So again, the response is not good. And again, we don't have to get into the Biden and Trump and all of their response stuff, but it's not good. And how are they able to respond so quickly to sending funds to Ukraine? But look what's happening with our own citizens here in the U.S. People are beginning to panic and act crazy. They're talking about martial law, according to my pastor who works for DOT. Please pray for us. And so again, I'm not going to show the footage, but what I do want to talk about is some of the research that a lot of people are doing. This guy, Into Thin Air on Twitter, is talking about how there are things that overlap, right? So they're opening or they were mining lithium mines in Asheville before the storm. They were about to install the largest lithium battery in Asheville. A lot of funny things were happening, or not funny, but they were building up. And then somehow you have to wonder, what is it that they were trying to cover up or stop? Because there were things that they found. And lo and behold, they're using this weather or whatever it is that's happening as some cover for maybe an attack or other stuff. And so again, people are doing research. They're talking about all these things. And I'm just bringing it to your attention because when we looked at what happened with Hawaii, people were not, people that were open-minded and wanted to seek the truth, they understood that there was more than meets the eye. How would you attack the US today in the 21st century if it wasn't for just you being kinetic, linear, right? You would want to confuse, would want to cover your tracks. You don't want to make it sound like you are, attacking because you are from this country or that group. What you would want to do is you want to make it seem like something else, like an anomaly. And so in this case, whether it's a hack, whether it's coordinated, whether it's HARP, whether it's something else, just know that the feasibility behind this still exists. And so I'm bringing it to people's attention to kind of think through and research on your own. So it's not about like, oh, this is what you think is your hunch or your belief. The more time you spend researching, connecting the dots, the more ammunition you have, the more you can gauge the situation. And through your discernment, you can make a conclusion to say what is true, what is not. And you don't fall for the logical fallacies, appeal to authority. These guys who say, oh no, believe us, we're the tried and true source of information, as opposed to doing research and figuring this out for yourself. And so if you're smart, if you want to do the due diligence, you can see, and more information is going to come out. But again, right now it's crazy. They're doing shelter in place for people in Georgia because of the chemical attack and what's happening. And again, if you haven't seen it, it's crazy. All this footage is coming out. All this chemical stuff is spewing, everywhere. And so this place, and again, I'm not going to say what's in there or not. More information is coming out, or rather, I may not have fully understood what's happening there because there's just so much going on today. But a fire at a place called Biolab, residents ordered to remain indoors, lock windows, and all of this is crazy. And there are other people right now cross-referencing the storm path, okay, with the election, okay? So this guy, Matt Wallace, it took a long time for him to cross-reference, okay, the path of the hurricane and the destruction with an overlay of the 2020 election results. The storm seems to almost methodically miss the bluest parts of those crucial swing states while simultaneously ravaging the red parts. What a coincidence, right? So a few notable exceptions like Asheville, which is 60% blue, or quote unquote 60% blue. But besides that, the larger blue cities seem to almost all get quote unquote lucky together. If anybody was a conspiracy theorist, you would assume that this is a big part of the reason why Biden and Kamala are still prioritizing aid to illegals over aid to citizens impacted by the storm. And you would wonder if it was all by design. And so again, people are doing deep research into cross-referencing this stuff and what's really possibly going on, and if it was a distraction, an attack, some coordinated thing. Because again, these guys are very smart. They're very intelligent in terms of making the 21st century attack not seem like it was linear and kinetic, but rather you would make it seem like something else and blame something else, and it would just look like an anomaly or a coincidence. So again, I'm not saying this is true or factual. It's just something to think about, because as we move more into the elections, you see the true colors coming out of some of these guys and what could be within the realm of possibility. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Be encouraged, stay prayed up, more is to come. Talk to you guys very soon.